So my name is Kaylee Gaines, and I'm the Outreach Education Coordinator for the Hill Country Children's Advocacy Center. Today we are here to talk about the Hill Country Children's Advocacy Center, what we do, who we are, and why we do what we do. So let's just go ahead and get started. Again, I apologize for being a few minutes late. The fun of a first presentation, right? So we talk about the Hill Country Children's Advocacy Center. We're going to start with the history and kind of go through who we are, who the staff members are, and then into what we do and why we do that. So let me get the presentation up. Okay. Now it's not wanting to share. Bear with me just a second. There it goes. Okay. So again, we're going to talk about us. A little bit about our history. So the center was founded in 1992 by concerned citizens throughout the counties that we served then. So that was Blanco, Llano, Burnett, Lampasas, and actually Mills County. It started with Yvonne Evans. She was the original founder. So her and a group of other concerned citizens decided that our children were not getting the best of what we had to offer, having to go to multiple people to have interviews or have a case prosecuted. So they decided, let's do a children's advocacy center. So that's where the idea came from. It started with one ED, and she was also the interviewer. We now have currently 13 staff members. So the initial service was interviewing. Family advocate was added shortly. We have now grown into a multitude of services to assist families through their entire child welfare case. We were the first rural multi-county CAC in Texas. And so we were actually a mentor to a lot of the CACs that are around us, because we were able to start that foundation and figure out how that needed to work and what that was going to look like, and then in turn assist others. So who are we? Who is our team? So who we have in the office currently, Ken is our executive director, Ken Nickel. Alyssa McKell is the program director. So she oversees all direct services, which is interviewing, family advocacy, those services. So Lana is our lead forensic interviewer, and Catherine is also a forensic interviewer. So we have two forensic interviewers on staff currently. Lisa Carson is our therapist. She is also our clinical director. She has an intern therapist, Lauren. So we do have two full-time therapists on staff. And then we have Erica, who is new to our group. She is the support therapist and family advocate. Karen Melton is also a family advocate. Alexis Sinley is our MDT coordinator. So we will talk more about what the MDT is and what that looks like. Yacinda Agar is also a program assistant. She is our backup for all of our direct services. So everything but interviewing. Our interviewers are specially trained, nationally accredited. So they have a very direct protocol that they follow. But Yacinda backs everyone up in the office, including myself. Lisa Campbell is our administrative assistant. And of course, I'm the education outreach coordinator. And then we have Laura Cheney, who is our development coordinator. So she is the one in charge of our events and our fundraising, and helping get that county, or helping our director get the county and city funding. So what do we do at the CAC? So we are a neutral, child-friendly, focused agency with trained staff to help facilitate the communication and coordinate the joint investigations of our partner agencies. So even though there's 13 of us in this building, we have a bigger team than that. We can include law enforcement, CPS, prosecution, anyone that might be involved in a child welfare case. So we coordinate that big team in the sense that the services we actually offer include the forensic interviewing, the advocate, the counseling, the coordination of that bigger group, medical exams, and then of course education and outreach. So I'm going to break each one of those down as we go in a little further. But let's talk about why CACs exist. So the old system, without a CAC, you had kids going to the doctor and they would make the disclosure, or go to their teacher and make the disclosure. And so the call would get called in, and CPS would come out and they would have to tell their story to CPS. And then law enforcement would need to get involved. And so they would have to go to the police department, and they have to tell their story to the police. And then prosecution would get involved. And so prosecution would want them to tell their story. And then they start therapy. And so therapy needs to hear their story, or they need to go to the doctor, and then the doctor asks questions. So with that happening, you were taking a child who had already been through trauma, and they were then going to all these different places and having to tell that story over and over and over. So the goal of the CAC is that we put that child in the middle, in our focus, in our center, and we bring law enforcement to them, CPS to them, prosecution to them, and we conduct that interview in a neutral setting, asking all the questions that CPS needs for safety and all the questions that law enforcement needs for prosecution side, if there was a crime committed. So we put them in one place and we ask all those questions at one time. Our interviewers are trained to do that in a non-leading way. And so therefore, our recordings, we record that interview, and our recordings are admissible in court. So that way everyone involved in that case, or the DA's office gets a copy, or law enforcement gets a copy of that disc. And that is anyone that gets involved in that case at a later date, instead of having to bring the child in and say, hey, I need to talk to you about what happened to you, they can watch that video and hear the same interview that everybody else heard. So the idea is putting the child in the middle and doing everything that they need as quickly as possible so that they can move on to their therapy and be able to recover from what happened to them and know that that does not define them. So when we talk about children's advocacy centers, there are 71 CACs in the state of Texas. We cover just over 200 counties of the 254, which is amazing. There are actually just over 850 national CACs, or excuse me, nationwide CACs. And the idea of that is that we are more than just one CAC in Burnett County. We are a network of CACs. And so we may be here serving the children of Burnett County, but if a child that we see here in Burnett, if they move to Dallas or even out of state, and they have a local CAC close to them and something happens and they need additional therapy for their trauma, they can reach out to that local CAC, even though it may be in a different county or even a different state, and they can still receive those services because they were seen at the CAC in Burnett. So that center just calls us, verifies that child was seen, and then they are able to receive services. The other advantage of the CAC is that these children can get these services their entire life up into adulthood. So as far as the Hill Country Children's Advocacy Center, we cover 5 counties currently: Burnett, Llano, San Saba, Lampasas, and Blanco. So those are the areas that we cover, and all of the cities, anything within those counties that happens, we possibly could see here at the center. So how does a CAC look? So when a case comes into the CAC, it has to come from law enforcement or CPS. So there either has to be a report of child abuse to law enforcement or to CPS, and then in turn, those departments will call us and say, hey, I have this report and this kiddo, and I need to have them interviewed. So that's how the child actually gets seen at the CAC for the initial reason. So they bring the child here. We make sure law enforcement and CPS coordinate with them on a time and for the interview. They come, they sit at the table, our interviewers interview, and then that's what creates that multidisciplinary team. So the multidisciplinary team is all of those people that might be involved. And I'll break that down and get into more detail in just a little bit. So when we talk about that, after the multidisciplinary team, they continue to meet every month and talk about this ongoing case as long as it's open. And then what the child needs, and making sure that everyone is doing their follow-up as they should be. So that's kind of how the breakdown happens of a case when it comes through the CAC. So that multidisciplinary team, that's such a word. And a lot of times you will hear us as a CAC refer to it as an MDT. And so many times when I'm out, of course, I'm used to the slang too, and I'll say, hey, the MDT, and everybody's like, what is that? So that is our team. That is our big team that goes beyond the walls of the CAC. So that's law enforcement, child protective services, our staff, prosecution, medical, any victim services, any crisis centers. If cost is involved, they could possibly be a part of that MDT for that particular case. There's all kinds of different reason one group may be involved in a case. And there may be times where certain groups are not involved in case. So a child doesn't always need a medical exam, so medical may not be a part of one case, but is a part of another. So we create that MDT for each individual case to make sure that that child is receiving all services that they can get. So let's talk about forensic interviewers, or forensic interviews. So who can be forensic interviewed? So here at the center, we see ages 2 to 17, but for a 2-year-old, they have to be able to communicate. We all know there are some 2-year-olds that can talk just plainly and know exactly what happened and be able to give you all detail. And then you'll have a 7-year-old that's very nonverbal. So those are the ages we see, but there are other things that they have to be able to do for us to be able to do an interview for them. Any adults over the age of 18 that have a cognitive disability can also be seen at the center. And then, of course, they are victims of a form of abuse, whether that be sexual abuse, physical abuse, domestic violence, or a witness to domestic violence, drug endangerment, which means they're possibly coming from a home that drug use is happening, trafficking, whether it be sex or labor trafficking, but also a witness or a risk assessment can be done for any of the above things I just mentioned. So if a child comes in and they're deaf, blind, or non-English speaking, we do cater to their means of communication. So they are still eligible for all services. We just hired, Lucinda and Erica both are now Spanish speaking, so we're really excited to actually have that in the office and being able to utilize those services and reach those children even better than we have been. So family advocacy is the next thing that we'll talk about. This is for non-offending caregivers. It is crisis intervention. It's basically we can help with any community resources they need, coordinating those victim services, making sure they get those counseling referrals, resume building, a variety of things that maybe non-offending caregivers can need. So depending on the family and the crisis they're in and kind of what their needs are, that family advocate will work with that family to achieve whatever it is that they're lacking. So the family advocate may ask for case updates from the team to be able to help relay that information with the family. So we all know how busy our CPS and law enforcement are. And sometimes families are just like, I don't know who to talk to. And so our family advocate can help also coordinate that conversation, making sure the family stays up to date with what's happening. So this is the MDT part, the multidisciplinary team. So we have the MDT coordinator, Alexis, and she is actually the one who reviews statewide intake. So she receives any intake where law enforcement has been notified. So if law enforcement is notified of a CPS report, we also receive that. So it basically gives the system another set of eyes to say, hey, this kid could be in danger. And then we can help bring that up to those attention and say, hey, this fits our criteria to be seen at the CAC. Would y'all like to schedule an interview? So joint investigation is also encouraged from the start. Like I said, when she receives that intake, she emails both of the investigators that were put on the report, versus whether it was law enforcement and CPS, emails them both and says, hey guys, we've got this, it meets CAC criteria. Do y'all want to bring the kid in for an interview? The other piece that Alexis does is she is our case review. She manages our case review meetings, which is our MDT meetings that we have monthly, I believe most, some are quarterly, depending on how many cases come out of that county. But it's basically all members of the MDT that have worked a case with us during whatever time period we're looking at. It's not just an update, it is a collaboration. They ask questions of other experts. Law enforcement may be questioning something CPS is doing, and this gives them the opportunity to say, hey, did you send this kid home? And well, we still have this concern. And so it's a good conversation and to help hold each other accountable. This is also a very efficient way to help with that healing and that justice, because that way we know that every child is getting everything that they need, and that we're all fighting for them when nobody else will. Sometimes it feels like one person's fighting and no one else is helping. And so these meetings help remind us that there's a multitude of us trying to help these kids. So when we talk about therapy, Lisa and Lauren see children in the office. Lauren is a traveling therapy. With COVID, we've been able to expand that, and we have been doing telehealth therapy sessions for the kids that has beneficial for. So this is for children who have been forensically interviewed and have made an outcry of abuse. Both therapists are specially trained in a trauma-informed therapy, so it's not just about therapy like you think of in a normal sense, but they are able to focus on that child and that child's particular trauma, but also how that child deals with that trauma, because as we know, every single child deals with trauma in a different way. And so the trauma informed is based on, okay, so this child needs this kind of treatment for this trauma because they're dealing with it this way. And then this child may be totally different, have a different kind of way of dealing with things. And so that's the point of trauma informed, is to make sure that we're specializing for each child and what that child needs. So if, like I said earlier, if the child's been interviewed and made an outcry, they are eligible for services at any CAC nationwide. If there's no outcry or forensic interview, in-house therapy may not be available due to capacity issues. We do still assist the family finding services within the community, though, even if they may not qualify for a CAC therapist. If we feel that that is still something that they could benefit from, we still assist them in attempting to find those services within our community. So medical evaluations. So we do have medical evaluations on site. We have an exam room here for sexual assault exams and safe child exams. So SANE exams we call them SANE exams, and that is a sexual assault exam that is done by a sexual assault nurse examiner. So they are specialized in their field, specially trained. We utilize Brave Alliance for that. We have a contract with them, and so when we have a child who needs a SANE exam, they come here and we work with them on that. For them to be seen at the center, it is a non-acute exam that can be conducted here. That means it is 120 hours or more from when the sexual contact took place. If there is a need for an acute exam, which is within the last 120 hours of the interview or of the incident, we either send them to Dale Children's Hospital or actually to Brave Alliance in Georgetown. So due to that being an acute exam, that has another layer of specialty to make sure that any evidence that could be available, any evidence that could be there is processed correctly. So we are able to offer that. When we talk about a safe child exam, that's basically like a well check. A lot of times kids just need to know that they're okay, that everything's going to be fine. As far as we can, physically tell them, to make sure that they know that they're okay and that everyone is going to be there for them. So community outreach. So this is my piece. And so we do community training to all of our communities. That can include agencies, schools, professionals in the fields, even youth serving organizations. So we offer our services to anyone who is interested in them. They email me directly, we set it up, I figure out what their needs are, and we work on that. So some of the things we offer is recognizing reporting, boundaries of reporting child abuse, understanding boundaries of student-teacher relationships, human trafficking, shaken baby, and a sudden infant death syndrome. A lot of these are professionals that these trainings are required for, and this is an opportunity for their organization to get these trainings from professionals, but also they're free of charge. So it doesn't cost the organization anything to utilize us as a training. I do offer teens and children's day. We have Boss in My Body for any organization. We do play it safe in most school districts around us. We have done Lures and Lies of Traffickers. That is a high school program that talks about trafficking and how kids kind of get wrapped up into the trafficking and honestly don't even realize that that's what's happened. So we talk about that. And then we, of course, healthy relationships, because that's always important. So why are we here? So we basically are here partnering to help children who have been abused. We want them to find that healing. We want that justice, and we want to make sure that they recover. We want to help prevent any child abuse that we possibly can. So all of the programs that I offer to children are all preventative. But a lot of times when I'm out teaching, there are kids sitting in my group that say, hey, that happened to me. Most of the time it's something they've already told someone. It's already been processed, but we are standing there giving them the courage and the support to say, it's okay, and it does happen, and you're going to be okay. And so that's why we want to make sure we continue to do that and prevent others. We want them to know that if they feel uncomfortable or they feel unsafe, that it's okay to tell someone. That's the prevention part of what we do. The healing and the justice, that's the therapy and the interviews, to be able to say, hey, this happened, but that doesn't define you. And you are going to heal, and we are going to be okay, and we will get justice for you. So when you look at the CAC in an overall aspect, we are a place of hope and healing for children and families who have suffered abuse. We have partnerships between law enforcement, CPS, medical professionals, bringing that healing and that justice and that recovery to a child-centered place. Then we have the direct services, which are the actual interviews and the medical exams and the counseling, the case management, all of those things that help families navigate through a complex system in the least traumatizing way possible. Then you have the awareness piece, which is the raising awareness of child abuse that happens in our community. Even though we don't want to believe bad things happen here, they do. And the more that we talk about that as a community and the more that we address those things, the more that people will realize, okay, Burnett's not a place for me to live, because they are aware of what happens and they're going to turn on me. That's the best we can do for our kids, is to say, it doesn't matter who did this, we aren't going to put up with it. We are going to protect you as a community, and you always have the right to tell us. So that's an overall, just that partnering to make sure that these kids who have been abused find that healing, that justice, that recovery, working to prevent other children from being harmed. I can't say that enough. Like, those pieces are so huge. And these kids that have experienced this trauma at the hands of someone that they probably know and love, and being able to get through that trauma and become someone and know that what happened to them was not their fault, and also that that doesn't define them, that they are more than that. So that's what I have as far as the CAC. I do have a poll, if you don't mind taking that. If this was helpful, if it was somewhat helpful, is there something we can go on? I also have a certificate that I will share in just a minute. But I thank everyone for stopping in today and checking on this and hearing more about what we have to offer. I thank you very much, and sorry about the technical difficulties at the beginning. First time, we will learn and we will grow every time. So really, really appreciate you attending. And, oh, I didn't publish it. Okay, I think it's published now. I'm still learning where all the buttons are. So I do appreciate everyone being a part of this and sitting through this and being interested in what we do and how important it is to our communities and to our kids, which in turn is our future. They are the ones that we have to rely on. So I appreciate it. And then I will share the certificate real quick. Did anyone have any questions? I didn't look at the chat board. If there's any questions, don't hesitate to ask them. My email is also on this slide. If you have anything you would like to ask, you can always email me in private too.